Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Got a huge, massive new commitment, a star defensive end. Great tape. We're going to break his film down, learn a little bit about Kari Wilder, who is making the trek from Los Angeles area to Columbus. He's going to be a stud. Larry Johnson, as always, on fire on the recruiting trail. So we got him. He's about to get JJ Perez. So, hey, we're rolling. Again, I know that some people have anxiety attacks over nothingness, but hey, here we are. We're getting our D-line recruits, and again, I count Bo Atkinson as a kid that we just got in this past class. So, you got to add the transfer portal to the class, guys, because that's an easy way to. Logan George is going to be a good player. So, again, as much as people want to freak out about high school kids, look at the totality because I think our D-liner is going to be really good this year. So, this is my opinion, and I love Larry Johnson to death, and I am really excited about the direction of that room. So, with that being said, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, special thank you to our veterans, our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters. Again, we appreciate you guys paying it forward. Again, thank you to all of those that super chat that goes in to pay it forward. Again, if you are a pay it forward eligible member, you can sign up for a complimentary BuckeyeScoop.com membership on our message board, which has been extraordinary recruiting coverage. Joe Dram was out there. We have some new interviews from today at camp. Joe was on the ground covering it, did some good interviews. So check that out on our YouTube. And also, and I'm going to bring in Nevada for this because we are on the hunt to grow this YouTube channel. And if you've not hit subscribe yet, now is a great time to do so. It's completely free, super easy to do. And something that, again, it takes literally a millisecond to click on the subscribe button. But we're growing this channel at a crazy rate. The largest Ohio State YouTube channel in existence. It's all thanks to you guys. Nevada, did I leave anything out on our ask to get our YouTube to 40,000 members?
No, it's real easy. Like I said, you see that big subscribe button right there at Ohio's, Buckeyes, Buckeye Scoop at on YouTube, and just click subscribe. That's it. Easy, free, easy. The best thing you can do is hit that and then send it to some of your like-minded friends and have them click on it as well, because we're driving towards 40,000 subscribers, which would be an unbelievable accomplishment. We never dreamed we could get this big, but we're hurtling towards it and doing it with your help. So appreciate it very much. But hit that subscribe button, help us out.
Yeah, and it's organic. Unlike some Ohio State YouTube channels, we don't buy subscribers, because it's funny when you can see the analytics and you can see when they get 500 in a day. I'm like, oh, that probably didn't happen. So all organic around here. Nevada, also organic, is Kari Wilder is now in the fold. He jumps in, defensive end. He's 6'4", about 250-ish. He's a really good-looking kid. His tape is exceptional, plays really high-level competition. Your thoughts on Kari Wilder? Again, this is a kid from about 7 miles, you said, away from where the Nevada Castle is. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, Sarah High School kid. If you're not familiar with Sarah High School is a an all-around terrific athletic program, and getting a kid from Sarah is a big deal. I mean, it's not quite modern day or Bosco, but it's really good. Like they crank out really good athletes there at Sarah, and Gary Wilder's really good player, and to get him, right under the nose. It's funny, on my feed came up some article from one of the other sites or whatever it was, and it said Larry Johnson finally gets a defensive line recruit. Like he didn't land Zion Grady, Jarquez Carter, Maxwell Roy, Logan George, Bo Atkins. I mean, like he didn't land 7 guys in the last recruiting cycle. I don't understand. I really don't. I don't understand this narrative that Larry Johnson is just sleeping through the recruiting meetings or something. Um, this is a really good get. I'm really excited about this kid. Been hearing about him for a couple of years. Frank, Alabama offer, a lot of other big offers that are across the country, and just an absolutely elite kid. Great get by Larry Johnson, great get by Matt Patricia and the entire staff. But I'm excited about that. Getting kids is always exciting, but getting kids from Southern California, kids that you've seen before, and like I said, Sarah's so close to my house, it's a chance to go watch them all the time. So super excited about seeing him play this senior year and seeing him as a Buckeye.
Yeah, it's interesting when you watch this tape. He's inside a lot because he's a bigger kid. He's like 265-ish, 255-ish. Does he grow into being a 3 tech? I don't know. He could. I mean, Edric Houston did. Edric was much heavier than him at this point. He was about probably 270-ish, so about a 15, 20-pound difference. But, really nice player. He's exceptional, a lot of production. It's funny because we blast these narratives out of the water. It's almost like we've got like an AC-130, and we just blast down at the, like, you see those videos of the cannon shooting at the terrorists, like, in the black and white. That's like what we do to stupid narratives. Again, at this time last year, all I heard about was, oh God, is the O-line going to be good enough to protect Will Howard? And you got Trey Henderson and JJ and all these guys. Oh God, is the O-line going to be any good? And the whole time I'm just like, when have we not been good? I mean, we've always been good on the O-line. There's been years when we've been great. And I said that, and it was like, oh God, I don't know how we're going to be. And you fast forward to the end of the year, we have 2 first-round picks, guard and a tackle, both go first round, and we have the Remington winner at center. And I'm just like, and we had a really good workman right tackle, and Tegra and a bunch of guys played the other spots. Then Carson comes on, and Luke Montgomery, and so I'm like, why do people, it's like they just rev their engines while they're in park and burn all their gas up for no reason. And that's how I feel with D-line recruiting. It's like when there's some like boogeyman, people just love to cling to it. And it's like, I don't think some people can sleep at night. I think that they stay up looking at the ceiling saying, oh my God, are we ever going to get a defensive line commitment? And then sure as can be, we get into recruiting season. Like right now, we get a defensive end commitment. These official visits are always excellent. We're going to flip JJ from Gainesville, from the Florida Gators. That's like the most obvious thing in the world. So you're going to have 2, and then you get 3, 4. And this is kind of business season. These next couple months, like I tell every kid, look, if you know where you want to go, and again, if you're a kid that, if you have that Ohio State offer, I think every kid that can commit to a school that they want to go to should commit before their senior season. I obviously was not, recruiting is a much later cycle, and I was still a very late cycle because I didn't get off until December of my senior year. But like, so I didn't want to commit to Pitt or Purdue or Stanford or wherever. But to have the peace of mind that you're committed and a place, Ohio State, they always say, look, if you get hurt, if you have some debilitating injury, an ACL, I mean, even if you get a car wreck, I mean, kids, whiling out in their cars, get a bad wreck and you can't ever play football again. Ohio State will honor your scholarship. They will give you a medical red shirt. It doesn't count against our cap. And that's something that peace of mind of knowing that your college is paid for, regardless of you tear your ACL 3 times or whatever. Because we've seen kids that have had, injuries their senior season, and it's unfortunate, but I advise all these kids to commit. So again, this is business season, these official visits, kids are going to start jumping in the boat because, again, with the NIL stuff being restructured, it's going to be a much simpler deal. There's not going to be some, parachute offer coming in from Miami or South Carolina to snag a kid. So I like the direction of this D-line, and I love how Larry has worked the transfer portal, because I think Bo Atkinson is the most underrated player on the team. I think he's a really good player. He's got, he had 7.5 sacks in the ACC last year, which I think is exceptional. I think, with Kenyatta, Edric Houston, I know everyone's worried about the backup defensive tackles, which again, there has to be something that terrifies people. But I just, like I said, I played 5 years, and I don't know how many times like our backup defensive tackles, like, obviously they got to soak up, 15, 20 snaps so that the starters don't die. And the season is very long. I get that the season is much longer than I played. I get that very much so. But, I mean, I think we're going to be in good shape. You move Logan George inside a little bit, and he can play some 3 technique, and you got to get something out of Jason Moore and some of these older guys, because it's, it's go. You get in year 3, man, it's go time. I mean, you got to figure out if you're going to be a Buckeye or if you're going to be a guy they're going to process out of here. And there's a bunch of guys that they have the bullseye on them for this training camp. And the good thing is that I think our offensive line interior is deep and talented and excellent. So you're going to have a lot of competition, but your Carson Hinsman, I think, is going to take a big step. He's been working a lot with Charles Bentley. I think that, Josh Padilla. So the reason why this matters is, like, when you've got a really good second unit, you've got Josh Padilla and Jake Cook and some of these guys on the inside, it'll test these backup defensive tackles and put the screws in a little bit. And I would, if I'm Larry and Ryan Day, I'm saying, look, all right, some of you guys, we're going to pull Edric out, and we're going to put you in versus the ones. You're going to go against Luke, and you're going to go against the big dogs. And that's how you figure it out. But I love our D-line. Again, I think that it's going to be top tier. The top 5 or 6 guys can start anywhere. And I think it's going to be a great year. But yeah, the Larry Johnson slander is always hilarious to me because I mean, he's a legend, and I know that he's 175 years old. I get that, but he's still cranking, and we've got a bunch of young guys that are, I don't say they're, auditioning for the job, but guys like Tony Washington, those guys they're auditioning for the job. I mean, he was an assistant edge coach, for UCLA, and he played at Oregon. So there's some young guys in there. Miguel Patrick. If I was those guys, I would have my pedal to the metal, trying to impress Ryan Day every day because when Larry does retire in the next 5 years or so, um, the replacement might be in house. I mean, Ryan. I mean, if he likes you, I mean, he promoted Corey Dennis. He promoted Keenan Bailey. If he thinks you're that guy, then he'll promote you from within. So again, I like the D line. I think that having Miguel Patrick and some of these young guys out there help Larry recruit. It's just an absolute no brainer. When you have infinite coaches now that can be there and actually be coaching and recruiting and stuff, you know, we're taking advantage of it. That's the big difference between the haves and the have-nots. Nevada, again, Larry, and again, it's funny you talked about how he got like 7 guys in this last cycle, but he got Edric Houston 2 cycles ago. He was the number 1 lineman in the country. What are your thoughts? Because again, I've said it a billion times, and I know that money's not everything, but Larry's making $1 million to coach the D line, so that's a pretty good, that's a big thing to leave behind to go to Bonita Springs and play bingo on Tuesday night. But what are your thoughts on where Larry's at? Because I like him. I know everybody has anxiety attacks about recruiting and whatever. I don't have the energy for it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I look. So you said so many smart things, but one of the smartest and from what I've never heard before was you know, who were the backup defensive tackles on the 2002 national championship team? I'm not sure I can name them. I'm sure we probably could if we went through the roster and looked and did this. Not sure how many big plays they made. Not sure who the backup defensive tackles were in 2014 when we won the national title either. So it's yeah, these are high class problems for Ohio State fans, and the defensive tackles. I'm going to go to the other smart thing you said was just get us to third down, get us to third down, and then let C.J. Hicks and Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and blitz packages and Matt Patricia's genius and Bo Atkinson sliding inside, Logan George sliding inside. Let that take care of itself. Yeah, I think the defensive tackles just all they got to do is get us to third down, and we're going to be just fine because we've got a lot of different ways to attack people when it's a passing situation. I think but Matt Patricia is going to be up to the challenge, and I'm so excited about this coming year. And I think for Larry, you know, people can debate lots of things, but it's hard to argue with the fact that he brought in 7 guys in the last recruiting cycle. So it might have been the best recruiting class that he's ever brought in. Certainly from a volume standpoint, it was. And so I'm not sure where all the stuff is that he's kind of lost his touch. His guys love him. The players that are playing for him love him. The other coaches certainly know how aggressive he is on the recruiting trail, and I'm not hearing that he's slowing down or losing interest or whatever. Like he might be evolving. We all evolve as we get older. You evolve in every aspect of your life, but I don't. Larry's still got a lot of engine left in him. You've talked about football coaches can coach. What Dick LeBeau coached until he was like 90 years old or whatever it was. I mean, football coaches can coach into older age. And Larry certainly, got enough tread left on the tire to be helpful for Ohio State. And getting Kerry Wilder again, that's no small feat. This is a big time get for Ohio State. Big time player, a player that everybody wanted, and Ohio State got him. And I guess people can make excuses. Maybe it's Matt Patricia got him, or maybe Greg Schiano got him by helping with his son, or something like that, or Ryan Day got him, or Urban Meyer got him, or whatever. We'll make some excuse to why we got him. But the bottom line is, just got another big time defensive line recruit and got more guys on the already. The big defensive tackle Perez from the Florida commit. Looks like he's a flip to the Buckeyes. I mean, we're probably going to go on a run with Perez, Drew Evers, the interior lineman, Aaron Thomas, the offensive tackle. So yeah, huge recruiting weekend this weekend. Absolutely enormous recruiting weekend. We, potentially Justice Fitzpatrick, Sincere Johnson, the great linebacker from Glenville, Kayshawn Elzar, Pierre Dean, Eke Okabuko, Samuel Roseborough. It's a who's who of top end talent, and that's coming off two previous weekends of top end guys. So yeah, these next 3 weeks are really not going to tell the tale for Ohio State, because Ohio State recruiting is going to be great, but it's going to tell the tale in terms of who's going to jump on the boat, and lots of good things happening, and I'm excited. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, like as you get into these camps, and camps are if you're one of the guys getting evaluated and you're a guy that has a shot to get an offer, it's really exciting and stressful. But for everybody else there, it's like watching paint dry. It's the most boring experience of my life, and I know that man, these coaches cannot wait for these things to be over because you're out there for like at least 4 or 5 hours a day, and you're hot, and you got to coach and there's some days like today there wasn't a single Ohio State caliber offensive lineman. There's days where you have those days where you might be coaching one guy that has a shot of getting an offer. So you got to drag through it. But, these visits are coming up and there's a lot of momentum. And I think something that has come up a lot, and I give a lot of credit to Joe Dream. He was out at camp today doing the Lord's work, standing in there in the heat and watching these kids run around, kill each other, running one-on-one routes and, and doing the one-on-one passer stuff. But, you're going to get into business, and there's no hotter program in the world than Ohio State because of the city of Columbus, the opportunities for your brand in Columbus, which I know that sounds silly, but it's an actual thing in Columbus. Honestly, like the faith thing is like really popular among a lot of these kids, recruits, the parents, kind of that whole angle to the team. Also, just we win and we put guys in the league. And Columbus is a great city, and Ryan Day has a 7-year extension, and the coaching staff is on lockdown. And like I said, Ryan Day is so shrewd for the way that we're using these young coaches or old coaches. Like Charlie Dickey is a seasoned, old, grizzled line coach that he is like our assistant line coach or program assistant, or he has some silly title I looked up the other day. And then Marcus Johnson's like the assistant offensive line coaches. We have 3 full-time offensive line coaches. But Tyler Bowen is he's the guy, he's the actual guy that can go out and recruit. But all 3 of those guys can coach, and we're doing kind of the same thing on the D line, except we've got a couple younger guys in there but they're impressive. I mean, they're guys that have been real coaches at like places like UCLA and UAB, and I think that that's important. Again, I think with Tony Washington, I mean, he was from UCLA, so he probably had some knowledge of Kerry if he's at UCLA, and I think that is something that's really unique about a lot of these coaching hires, because again, as much as I want to be able to bring in like a great coach that is a good technical coach and can really coach the guys up, I like bringing in guys that have diverse recruiting areas of expertise in terms of regions. Again, Marcus Johnson, he played at Ole Miss, played in the NFL for the Vikings. He coached at Mississippi State. He's at he was at Purdue last year. Purdue does a lot in Texas in general. That's kind of been one of their feeding grounds over the last 30 years. So I like, and Charlie Dickey obviously is at Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy for a long time. So he's in Texas, he's in Oklahoma, he's in the South a ton. I like that, again, and I'm not saying that that's always, a huge help, but I think that when Carlos Loughlin has been a monster in the South. I mean, we're going down into places like Baton Rouge and getting safeties to come here, and we're going into Mississippi, and we're going into places that we just never went into, and I think a lot of it's because we have inroads down there. Again, Carlos Loughlin is from Pike Road, Alabama, which is right next to, it is Montgomery basically. So we're down there pulling kids like Quinshawn out of the transfer portal. So I love our recruiting strategy. I think that the way that we use our coaches to really, pepper the country and especially the hot spots, it's been impressive. And again, this is going to be a lot of business getting done over the next 2 weeks. The class will firm up. Again, I think a lot of kids are smart, and they commit in August because you want to get a plan in place before your season where do I have to, what do I have to do and get done to go to Ohio State and enroll early? Because that's the big thing is, if you're one of these primetime kids, you want to get here in January. And that's the new move. And again, it's been like that for, 10, 15 years, but it's really like that now. You don't want to be one of the June kids because it's tough. You're behind and you don't learn the playbook and you don't go through 6 a.m.s and you got to start class during football season, which sucks. And I didn't enjoy, but that's just the move from here. Nevada, the team I think is really shaping up. This is summer conditioning. What are some of the things you want to hear over the next few weeks? Obviously, we've got next few weeks of official visits. Your camps, I think there's like maybe 2 or 3 more days left. 7-on-7 camp in there. What do you want to hear the next few days out of the team? Because this is right in the smack middle of of like summer conditioning. It's brutal. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, like just little things like the dudes of the week. I mean, like the first three dudes of the week. I remember it was what Caden Curry, uh, Jermaine Matthews and Arvell Reese, I think
Yeah.
it was. And, you know, sometimes, this stuff is like honoraries, like employee of the week or whatever it is. But, these dudes of the week, you can get some pretty good information about who's kind of tearing it up in condition. You can talk to the other players and see who's kind of, assuming those leadership spots. I mean, last year was the second year in a row that Carson Hinsman had been an Iron Buckeye. Had been a pretty good indicator to us that he was going to be good, heading into the season, and he was. This year was Austin Seyerveld, and then Austin goes out and grabs that right open right tackle spot right there, and that's always a good indicator. But I just really want to see who's leading in these spring workouts because this is the time for guys to kind of make a move. This is the time for Julian saying to establish that that he is the guy. That he's the guy that we believe that he was. He obviously arranged that great outing in Southern California where all the skill players got together and now Lincoln was there as well, but that was clearly a Julian Sain joint. Um, and Julian's gonna have to be good right off the bat because one thing we have this year with Ohio State is a challenging schedule. We I mean, our road trips, amongst others, is what at Washington, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, and at Michigan. So, and I'm not sure how many of those first three are going to be night games. You never know with the way this thing goes. I mean, I would assume the Washington game's going to be a night game. I would assume the Wisconsin game's going to be a night game. I mean, we're going to get then we play Penn State in the shoe. We play Texas in the shoe. So we have got a heck of a schedule um, that starts out right from the get go challenging. And we all know. Look, it's a 12-team playoff, but if you lose 3 games, you're in jeopardy of not making it. And so, I just, I just knocked off 6 challenging games right there. We got to win at least 4 of those. And it starts out with what the number 1 team in the country in the horseshoe. So got some huge challenges. We're going to need, we're going to need those guys that we need to step up right away because they don't have time to grow up. They don't have time to, uh, to be freshmen or to be inexperienced or to be, sophomores just getting their first shot. They got to be veterans from day one, and it starts in the summer, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think that you absolutely nailed it. I mean, this schedule is, I, I, I mean, in the last 10 years, 50, I mean, I don't know if I can think of a harder schedule. I mean, and again, please point out one if I'm wrong, where, you open with, the best opponent, and I think this, Texas, other than us, best team in the country. Your quarterback's going to be the Heisman favorite coming into the game. Obviously, a lot of it's on his last name. Obviously, he hasn't played much, but he's a good player. Then you got the 2 layups with Grambling and OU. And then like at Washington, like I do love that we have a bye week. Thank God. That flight it feels like it's like 75 hours. I mean, so I literally played at Washington my senior year. The last time we were out there was in 2007, and I mean, I felt like I took like 3 separate naps because it was such a long, terrible flight. And that stadium's loud, and they're going to be good. And they were in the national championship 2 years ago, which is crazy. I mean, I know they got ran out of the gym by Michigan, but this is formidable. And then you got to come back and play Minnesota, which is always tough, I think. Then at Illinois, that's going to be a very difficult game, very difficult. Not sure if it'll be a night game. I'm sure Illinois would kill for it to be a night game just because it's that's the game that they sell to their season ticket holders and to their donors and their, hey, wait till Ohio State comes into town and they're number one and we're 11. And Brett Bielema was, I mean, you can say what you want about him. He's weird. Call him fat, whatever. He's a great football coach. I mean, great. I mean, his kids play hard. They're tough to go against. They're going to be physical as can be. Again, I don't like him, but I respect his teams because they play really well. And Illinois, it's a weird stadium. It's quiet. It looks like a dump. So, and we played terrible. We played out there in 2006. It was the worst game I think we ever played. It was terrible. We won I think 10-7 or 17-10 or some embarrassingly bad score. It was like everything that could go wrong went wrong that night. And it was terrible. At Wisconsin, obviously, I'm sure that they'll want that to be a night game. I don't know if it will be. I don't know if it'll be the big nooner, if they're going to try to make that a night game. I guarantee they want it to be a night game. But if we're not allowed to have night games, neither can they. Then Penn State. And you have this insane stretch of Washington, Minnesota, 3 out of 4 on the road, in the middle of your bye weeks. And then you get Penn State at home off the bye, which again, it's nice to have the extra week to heal up, to get ready for Penn State. But and then at Michigan to end it. That's your cherry on top before you get ready for the Big Ten title game, which will be, it'll be Oregon or whoever, Penn State again, whatever. I don't know if I can remember. And again, please in the chat, let me know what schedule recently compares to this or you think is more difficult, because I just don't know. I mean, this is because not only is it the quality of the opponents, it's also like the length of travel. Potential night games, again, if they're not going to put Illinois and Wisconsin back to back at night, but they could, I mean, Washington will surely be a 3:30 kick, I would imagine, which is, it's obviously noon out there. It's, it's a Pacific time zone, but, Nevada, I mean, can you think of a schedule in the last 20 years that's harder than this? And again, I'm please, if I'm missing one, but I follow this stuff pretty close. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and that's why I've been saying that these big out of conference matchups, they made sense when it was a when it was a no team playoff and you needed to impress the voters with something to differentiate yourself, or in a 2 team playoff or even in a 4 team playoff to kind of make it. You need those quality wins to kind of separate yourself from the other 1 loss or 2 loss teams or whatever it might be. But in a 12 team playoff, it's all number of losses. So the paradigm shifted from quality wins to number of losses. And so having these big games against Alabama and Georgia and Texas and we're all excited Notre Dame. Wow, these are great. We're playing these great out of conference games. I'm telling you, it's dumb. It's dumb, 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 because it just puts you behind the 8 ball. If you happen to lose, and it doesn't matter. I mean, we saw last year, you lose 32-31 or whatever the heck the score was at Oregon, in a game that we got absolutely hosed by the officials, lost by a millisecond, should have won the game. And you know what? It was a loss. Period end. Loss. At the end of the year, when we were matched up against Penn State, and Penn State, who we beat on their home field, they got seated higher than we did. Why? Because we had an extra loss. So people can talk all they want about quality wins and strength of schedule and playing the big dogs and everything like that. And I'm telling you, it doesn't mean doodly. In the words of Granny Hawkins, it doesn't mean doodly squat. It's all about losses. And if you get a loss, even a good one, it's going to punish you, and it's not going. You're not going to be rewarded for having it. So I know people are excited about Texas. I'd be happier if it was Mercer, and that may put me in the minority, and that's okay. I'm comfortable being there. But the idea that we could have a loss the first week of the season, and then just be playing uphill the rest of the way, is semi terrifying. Even coming off a national championship and all the goodwill that we have, because I know how our fan base is, and heaven forbid you miss the playoff or something like that, then oh man, then Ryan Day's kids are gonna have to go back into witness protection, and that's the cop cars are gonna have to show back up at the Day household. But yeah, so I'm not a fan of the big out of conference games. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by scheduling them.
Do you would anything remedy that? Would four automatic Big Ten teams getting in? Is there any way that you'd say, okay, now I'm good with playing, the big dogs again? Because obviously, when we play Grambling and FAMU, and nothing against like some of these schools, like the last time we had FAMU in the stadium, it was like 77-0, and I think it's like 50 at half. It was like I don't know if it was like 13 or 17. It's just bad. Like nobody wants to watch that. Is there any remedy for this? Because again, you and I always talk about how cutting edge the SEC is, and how they schedule Mercer the week before the Auburn game, and they dodge bullets, and I'll just be real. Like, I mean, as a former player, it's exciting to play Texas. I mean, I played them in 05 and 06, and we beat them in 06 down there, and they beat us up here, obviously. But like those games are physically demanding. Again, it's like a Stanley Cup playoff game. Like the intensity and the physicality is much higher than a regular season, game 82 versus two teams that are out of the playoffs and the guys are just out there trying not to get hurt. I mean, they're difficult. Again, and I know obviously from a competition and competitive standpoint, obviously, Kirk, you're playing a 5-star defensive, that's way harder than Youngstown State or some of the teams I also played, Kent State. And the other thing is, when you play Texas, you got to play the whole game. We're playing Akron, man. I'm like, get me out as fast as possible. I'm like, let's go. We're up 4 scores, man. Get me out. Get the walk-ons out there. Get the freshmen out there. I didn't want to play against crappy teams just because, like if I'm gonna get hurt, I want to get hurt playing Texas or playing Iowa or playing Wisconsin. I wanted out of those early games as fast as possible. Like let's not screw around. And again, there were games where we sucked. And trust me, I was there for the 3-2 at halftime versus Akron, and we got booed off the field in the shoe because we were so bad on offense. But I'm just saying, like, you play Texas, you got strap up playing the whole Penn State, and it takes a toll, man. I mean, I loved those games. We beat Northwestern 59-0 my senior year. Like I loved getting out of that game in the third quarter. It was great. And then you get to see all the walk-ons go in, you get to see the second stringers go in, and those guys need to play. Because that's the other thing about when you play Texas is like, look, you got to find spots to empty your bench and get those freshmen out there, especially with the new freshman eligibility rule where they can play in 4 games. Like you got to go get those guys out on the field and see if they can play or not, and see if they can, cover guys or block guys or whatever. Because I like seeing the young offensive linemen get out there because I want to see, do they have an anxiety attack, when they got to block a defensive end in a real game. And if you miss your block, your quarterback gets killed, because that's a different level of anxiety than you have in practice when well, if this guy beats me, then, my quarterback's not going to get sent to the infirmary. So again, I'm like you, but I just ask you, because we always talk about what we would do if we ran, if you were Nevadabuck, commissioner of the new college world order or whatever you want to call it, like, how do you remedy this? Because everybody, like, I like watching the Texas game. I hate the severity, and like we gamble on stuff, but this is a gamble this is a bet that I would not be dying to place, because I'd be like, well, yeah, it's cool, and the fans will be excited, and we'll have recruits there. But if you lose, because you can lose to Texas, you can't lose to 9 of the schools on the schedule can't beat us. They have no shot. And then there's about 3, Penn State, Illinois, Michigan. There's teams that can actually beat us, and then obviously Texas right at the top. Is there any remedy for this, Nevada?
Well, look, there's a couple of remedies. One is that you actually have a qualifying committee that actually, you know, uses their brain and has full consideration. The problem with that is they always talk about it and they always default to number of losses. It's just been that way. It just, if you lose late in the season, you fall in the. I mean, it's the way that college football is, and I think it's just so ingrained in the DNA of college football. I don't think that's changeable. So that's a wish, but I don't think that can happen. The second you mentioned was the auto qualifiers. have the auto qualifiers, but then the qualification to be in the top six to even qualify for one of those top four spots where you're playing a 1-2, 3-6-4-5 game, to get one of those auto qualifier bids, has got to be Big Ten, Big Ten performance. Not that's got to be the primary, um, way of seeding those teams, because you can't put yourself in a disadvantage by losing a close game to Georgia, and all of a sudden you're knocked out of the playoff because of it. And you know, uh, I mean, I look at like the Texas USC game. I'm sure not really sure how those things worked out that year. I guess those teams were both undefeated, but had you not played Texas earlier in the year, you know, yeah, I mean, yeah, I just you can always go through the thing where you're like, are you getting punished? It's like placing a bet where you're placing a bet with somebody, and they're going to collect the money if you lose, but they're not going to pay if you win. So you only have downside. Like if you win the game, is there some benefit, some tangible benefit that you get from winning the game? Because you know that there's a black mark that's going to go. If you lose, Ohio State 0-1, and bang, right off the bat, you're 0-1, and you're slotted behind all the undefeated teams. That's just the way it is. I mean, I'm talking to all the top ranked, reasonable undefeated. You're not behind Navy or something else like that, but you just slide down, and then every week it's the same thing. Those teams are 2-0, and you're 1-1. Well, 2-0 teams are top nine teams, and then there's Ohio State number 10, and that's just the way it is. And to me, that's not fair. That's not equitable. So I'd say have auto qualifier bids, but have the auto qualifier bids for those games only be Big Ten performance, and the out of conference games don't count in that. To get that seeding. That's what I would do.
Well, I think that the other thing, and those are great points. Obviously, the other thing is that again, so I was like, let's look at Penn State's schedule. So they open with Nevada at home. Obviously, they'll win by 70. FIU obviously at home, and Villanova at home. So they open with 3 home games. Then a bye week, and then they get Oregon at home. So like whoever made this schedule in the Big Ten, in the Big Ten office to start their Big Ten run. I mean, and then they're at UCLA, cakewalk, Northwestern, and then at Iowa, and then another bye week before they get the Buckeyes. So, again, I know teams. I played on a team, in '07, which was my senior year. I was a captain on that team. And I thought we were a good team that overachieved, and we had a very favorable schedule. So we ended up finishing the season at number 1, before we lost in the national championship, because we didn't play Texas or, some team. Our out of conference game that year was Washington, and Washington was atrocious. They had Jake Locker, who was a freshman. He ended up being a first round pick, but they just weren't a very good team, So that was, instead of playing, in the previous 2 years in 05, 06, we played Texas, and Texas, obviously 05, that was the best team to ever play in the horseshoe, on an opposing sideline, in my opinion. Vince Young should have won the Heisman, won the national championship. Then 06, we played Texas again, which again, we weren't real good at the beginning of the year in 06. We beat them. And a lot of it was because Vince Young went pro. Thank God. I mean, as soon as Vince beat us, I was like, please win every game, and please win the national championship, and please go to the league. So we knew we had to go down to Austin next year. And, if they had Vince, it would have been a billion times harder than, Colt McCoy and Jevin Steed. And Colt McCoy played like 10 years in the NFL, obviously, but he was a freshman. Because the thing that makes this tough, like if I was the athletic director, this would be my dream start to every year. Three patsies, a bye week, and then your toughest opponent, other than Ohio State, at home. And again, I know that they don't have control over the Big Ten schedule, but those first 3 games, that's a cakewalk. Because the thing for me is, there's a lot of years where you're breaking in a new quarterback, especially now in the transfer portal era. I mean, imagine if we had Julian saying, and his first game was against Nevada instead of Texas, and then you get a little FIU love, a little Villanova, and it gives, not just your quarterback, your new starters. Kenyatta Jackson is a new starter. A lot of these guys, they haven't carried the load yet. And not to mention, I love the impact of being able to play the young kids early, especially on them mentally, because these kids get homesick, they get into school, and then all of a sudden they don't play, the first couple games, which, a lot of our freshmen aren't going to play versus Texas unless they're exceptional. Um, and they can go to a bad place. So in games like this, man, you can empty that bench and put the Sousaphone player out there, and he'll get a couple snaps versus Nevada and FIU. So I don't know. Like this is how it should be done. But again, I'm not scared of Texas, but I just think that it's stupid. I mean, there's one thing to be scared, there's another thing to be stupid, and I think that with these big games, and we're gonna have Alabama come to town, Georgia. I mean, those are and those are home and home. So like we have to go to Tuscaloosa and we have to go to Athens. So I mean, like, oh my God, Nevada, your thoughts on Penn State schedule? Because again, this is what I think you mean, like when you want like a perfect setup, because three patsies, bye week, then your toughest non-Ohio State game. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you have the ability to call up their schedule from last year. No, that was the perfect schedule, or Indiana schedule from last
Yeah,
year. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like those were just impossibly bad schedules, and they were getting Penn State got seeded over us strictly on the by virtue of the fact that they played no one. They played one game, us at Penn State, and we beat them, and they still got seated over us. Why? Because we lost by 1 point at Oregon. And look, I know we ran the gauntlet. I know we won the national championship, but when you compared our path to the national championship to theirs, we had to beat Oregon and Texas before getting to the national championship game. And I can't remember who they played, but they weren't very good. I think it was one of the auto qualifiers, or two of the auto qualifiers, like Boise and then Arizona State, or I don't even remember what it was, but it was impressively bad. And our schedule was impressively difficult.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, Indiana is the one that it just, again, I'm going to pull them up real quick, because this is a real conversation that if I'm Ryan Day, I want to have with the athletic director. If I want to talk to Ross Bjork and say, look, I mean, I know that we schedule these games 5, 6, 7, 8 years out, and things can change. I mean, when we scheduled Washington, we thought they were going to be tough, because they, when we scheduled them, I mean, we played them in '03. My first game ever was we played Washington at the Horseshoe at home at night, and then, by the time we played them in '07, they were just down bad, really down bad. So things can change, but Indiana, I thought, was the best schedule that we've ever seen, because by the end of the year, I always thought they were fool's gold, because again, but again, like, the only thing that matters is, do you lose? Because if you just stay undefeated, you're gonna just have this meteoric rise in the polls, and you're gonna end up, they end up 11-2. But I mean, this is how you do it. I mean, if you want to be like Ryan Day and never worry about anything, like, look at this gauntlet that they run: FIU, Western Illinois, at UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, at Northwestern, and then Nebraska again. These guys all stink. Washington stinks. At Michigan State, Michigan, who they got at home. Then us, we housed them, of course. And at the time, I think they were a top 5 team, I think, when we played them. And obviously they weren't a real top 5 team. And then they play Notre Dame, and they lose in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, I just think that going forward, until we get to like an NFL style expansion where it's a Big Ten and the SEC, and they just rotate like in the NFL, like, this is how you do it. Because you want to talk about like mitigating risk, and basically, like Nevada, if Ohio State played the schedule, like, how much are you laying on them to make the playoffs? I mean, I know you bet a ton last year on them to make the playoffs preseason, but like, if they have this schedule, I mean, is there any amount of money you would leverage for them to run the table and make the dance?
Well, no, their coach got the lifetime contract at the stadium named after him. They were undefeated, top
Coach
five
of the
team in the
coach of the
country.
year, unanimous coach of
Coach
the
of
year.
coach coach of the millennium, coach of
Oh,
all time, Mount Rushmore of great coaches. And you just read off his
yeah,
schedule. It was, and we're playing Texas, and they're
yeah.
playing Charlotte. Like, come on. I mean, these games. Look, a lot of these games were scheduled, these home and homes, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was a different time. We have to evolve with the times. You evolve or you become the dinosaurs. And for Ohio State, they've got to look at this, and as fun as these games are, and as fun as people want to talk about it, we've already you never had the benefit of games against USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. And the only thing is they weren't part of the Big Ten. Now they're part of the Big Ten. You're getting plenty of premier games. You don't.
Oh,
These games are unnecessary. They are unnecessary risk. And you think it's bad this year too. We're playing Texas next year. We got to go to Texas, so that's not
right.
exactly a cakewalk. So,
No.
and it's going to be the same issue again. You lose one of these games, and you just watch the rankings, watch the thing, and watch them. People fall all over themselves at the end of the year to explain why Penn State should be seated over Ohio State, and it simply comes down to, well, they have a better record. What? Because our 1 point loss at Oregon was that just devastated us, while they went and beat Villanova. That's just not fair. And it's dominance and it's risky, and I hope it doesn't cost us this year. Hope it doesn't cost us any year, but it's inevitable to cost us at some point, and that's really going to be sad.
Oh no, it'll absolutely cost us at some point. Again, it costs in '05. It cost us. Now, obviously, we lost to Penn State. The game where I hurt my knee, but like, I mean, that Texas game. Again, that was it cost us. That was the classic example of why you don't play that game. In '07 when we didn't play anybody. Again, '07. Like I said, we were a good team that overachieved. I don't think that was a great Ohio State team, but we were number one in total defense, ground and pound. Tough team on offense and defense. But our schedule was amazing. Like I said, we played a bad
Who who
Washington
who
team.
yeah, who was your out of conference game? Was Washington? Oh, seven.
Washington at Washington, but it was a
Yeah,
bad Washington team. This
yeah.
wasn't the '91 team that won the national title. This was a turd. Again, they probably were like 4-6 or 3-7. Again, I just, I'll pull it up because I mean, I was, it was like Akron, Kent, Youngstown State. I mean, this was like just Cakezilla. Let me find the schedule because it was, we played. Okay, here we go. So this is the Nevadabuck road to the playoff, expose right here. Open with Youngstown State, then you play Akron. So 2 home games at Washington. Then you play Northwestern, who we beat 58-7, killed. Then at Minnesota, at Purdue, Kent State, Michigan State, at Penn State, Wisconsin at home, Illinois, obviously the one we lost, at Michigan, and then we played LSU. So, I mean, where are the real pitfalls? Michigan, obviously, we played Penn State tonight. It wasn't a good Penn State team. Beat them 37-17, beat the crap out of them. But this is like, if this year's Ohio State team played this schedule, I mean, I don't think that they'd be worried about any of those teams. But that's just, again,
Well,
that's the
yeah, yeah,
discussion.
yeah, and it's fun. It's funny because because that 017, like you said, it had deficiencies. It wasn't a truly great Ohio State team, and for love of one procedure penalty in the front of the game, you guys might win the national championship that year. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
you
well,
guys came within a whisper of doing it, and it would have been with a flawed team, which is kind of funny.
well, yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, we were the number one, but at the end of the season, when all the smoke cleared before, obviously we lost the championship, we were the number one team. So, like, if it would have been a playoff era, we would have been the 1 seed. And it was mostly because we didn't really play anybody. Again, I remember looking at that schedule and it's like, and you got to remember, we lost Troy Smith, we lost Ted Ginn, we lost, Antonio Pittman, Gonzo. So, I mean, we were a full blown rebuild on offense. O-line was completely rebuilt. New center, new guard, obviously new quarterback, Todd Beckman. Beanie had to basically be the offense. We had Hartline and Robo as our receivers. But, it was, I mean, I looked at that schedule. It's like, we got a shot. And mind you, I went to those Big Ten meetings and, we got picked to finish 3rd in the Big Ten after we just, ran the table, crushed the Big Ten in '06, and we lost to Florida. But I mean, I'm like, come on, we're not that bad. I mean, we still got Vernon Golson. Nobody knew how good Cam Hayward was yet, but Cam ended up starting as a true freshman at end. So, I mean, our 2 ends were 1st-round picks, and then we had James and Marcus and Malcolm Jenkins, and our defense was nasty. But, like I said, that schedule, because the thing is when you open with Youngstown State, Akron, those type of teams, you have a chance to get your feet wet and build some confidence as you get into playing at Washington or playing Texas. Like in '05, we opened with Miami of Ohio before we played Texas, which I thought was good. to build some synergy on offense. But when you open with Texas, man, it's like handing your 16-year-old who's got to go take driver's ed the keys to the Ferrari and saying, okay, son, good luck. I mean, go pick your teacher up so he can sit next to you while you do your student your teacher driving thing that we do in Ohio, where you have to have 20 hours with an instructor in a car with you. And if I'm that instructor and some 16-year-olds driving a Ferrari, I'd be kind of terrified. That's kind of what it's like playing Texas. But hey, we just saw those guys and they're going to be gassed up for us. So I got to get ready to roll. All right, got a couple of super chats. Gabe Gaines, thank you for the 10. He says, Mr. Clean himself couldn't get this staying off of Michigan's resume. Also ready to see us playoff against the Illini, renew the rivalry. I'm close to Champaign, so I get to go. Yeah, the Michigan stuff is still impressive how dumb people are. Because, again, you look at stuff that is just patently illegal. Obviously the advanced scouting completely illegal. Connor Stalions being on the sideline of a game is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's the most reckless thing I've ever seen. Cost Jim McElwain his job. Cost that coach's job. Again, I'd love to see some of the internal investigations that went on. And, again, I don't know. I'm sure that they have never released anything on a Freedom of Information Act, but I'd love to see, the questioning of Jim McElwain. Like, how did you let a kid that you worked with at Michigan on your sideline when he's a Michigan coach? I mean, it's just clinically insane. Not to mention the Weiss stuff. Again, people that still support Michigan, I just don't. At some point, man, you gotta cut it loose, man. I mean, I mean, they're the Jeffrey Epstein of college football at this point. They're Diddy. Like, I mean, you still associate. I don't. It says more about, I think, you than it does them. And yeah, Illinois, like I said, Illinois it's a weird team. Illinois is either absolutely atrocious or they're competitive, and again, like they beat us in '07 and they were close to beating us in '06 when we were undefeated. And we went up there and played like the worst game ever. And we were fully staffed. This wasn't the Florida game where Ted Ginn got his leg broke on the first play. So we lost our best player. And I was like, oh God, this isn't going to be one of our nights, is it? But Nevada, like, what are your thoughts on Illinois? Because again, I think that they're a sneaky good team. They should have beat Michigan 2 years ago when they were cheating with Connor Stalions. Obviously, there were some bogus calls, and Michigan kicked a late field goal to win. But what are your thoughts on Illinois? Because again, I think they're sneaky.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's traditionally been a difficult place to play, and with Bielema, like I said, weird dude. Don't want him at the head coach at Ohio State, but have mad respect for him as an opposing coach. I just think he's really good. He will absolutely have those guys jacked up and ready to play, and he'll have his bag of tricks all ready for us as well. They'll pull out every stop to win that game. That's a program changer for them. And we're gonna have to be ready to match his intensity because he's gonna have those guys going. As for Michigan, yeah, it's funny reading some of the stuff. I just kind of chuckle, and I can't wait for the decision to come out on this. It's funny because one of the big things forever with the Michigan fans has been, well, Charlie Baker, the president, said we won fair and square, and that was like their big thing. They've been chanting that for 6 months, and then they have this interview with Charlie Baker lately, and like he didn't even attend the enforcement. He's not part of this. Like, you guys don't understand, like him saying something has as much bearing as Kirk or I saying something. Like, he has nothing to do with this. The panel that was impaneled to hear this is going to hear it, and they're going to render a judgment. It's not for Charlie Baker to say or do or weigh in on or whatever it is. So he's really got nothing to say. And they're looking at Michigan as a repeat offender with aggravated the factors of non-cooperation, destruction of evidence, lying to the NCAA. So, um, it's a jury. Basically, think of this like a trial with a jury. When it goes to the jury, does anybody really know what the jury's going to come out with? No, nobody really knows what the jury's going to come out with because juries come out with wacky decisions all the time. But I think it's a pretty, based upon the fact that they couldn't reach the plea bargain before that the gulf between what the NCAA was asking and what Michigan was willing to swallow was so vast they had to go to trial. I feel better and better with every passing day about our position on this and how it's going to end up because that really is a dirty program.
Yeah, and like for me, it's a great point you make about it being a jury is that, the one thing I know about compliance people, and again, I know Doug Archie's head of compliance at Ohio State, he's been there for 15 years or whatever, 20 years. They don't like being lied to, and they don't like being played for a fool, and they don't think that you're cute when oh, I don't know if that's me. I've been to a lot of football games, and I don't know if that's me on the sideline. And like again, like when you see how Connor Stalions acted in the 5 minutes of revealed tape from his little deposition or whatever you want to call it with the NCAA, I was like, could you imagine how he acted the entire time if that's how he acted when? Who is this on the sideline? I don't know. It could be anybody. And I don't know. It doesn't really, I kind of looks like me. I don't know if it's me. I don't know. I mean, like, dude, like, you're just going to like lie to these people. I'm just fess to it. It was you. Again, they're going to interview Central Michigan and figure out what they found out from Jim McElwain and the stooge that let you in. And, like Justin Spiro said, they have video of you coming in. Because again, it's a stadium. There's cameras at every gate. You can't just teleport in there. They're going to be able to rewind it and say, okay, where'd he come in? Oh, there is side gate. Oh, there's, again, as Justin Spiro said, there's video of them passing the clothes. here's your polo. I mean, this was like, it wasn't even like he rode the team bus and got off on the bus and walked in with the team. They literally handed him the gear and he put it on outside the gate and came in the gate. Here's your shirt, here's your credential, toss that on real quick, and then just come, flash your thing at the thing and we'll let you in. So I just like, when people are that stupid, and then you see how they act in front of, people that are deposing or whatever, interviewing them for the trial, like, who knows what they said and who know what the NCAA's found out during this this entire investigation. So I don't know, but I'm betting bad. Iowa Buck, thanks for the deuce. Not going to matter. Going to beat Texas anyway. Bring it. And again, I love the bravado, and I do think we will beat Texas. I do. We already beat them once. They've kind of got the steam, kind of like we had the steam the second time we played Oregon. So, Ryan Day's got to be ready for that. Our guys will be ready, and they still got to cover JJ and do their thing. But I'm like Nevada, man. Nevada knows my style, like when it comes to betting on stuff and that. I hate risk. I mitigate every ounce of risk that I can. I want a highest possible probability to win and hit the jackpot. I don't like to just, I guess we could play Texas and get some cachet, but we could also lose that one, and then you're behind the 8 ball the rest of the season. And you got to break your new quarterback versus a really, really good defense. Risky. That's why I like Nevada says, like, playing Mercer is like, yeah, I would take a big scoop of Mercer for week 1. But again, I'm not the athletic director. And frankly, Ross Bjork didn't schedule this game. So it's just a different deal. Nevada, your thoughts? Again, Iowa Bucky says, not going to matter. We're going to beat Texas anyways. Bring it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like our chances too, because I'm a big Julian Sane guy, and I think he's going to be ready, and I think it's going to be a very difficult game for Arch Manning. But like you said, it's a challenge. I'm from the Norman Schwarzkopf school of the power of overwhelming force and making it unfair. And so, yeah, I'll be there at the stadium rooting us on against Texas, but I'd be just as happy, eating hot dogs and eating out of my nacho hat as we crush Mercer 59-0 and doing that. So yeah, I think we're gonna we'll definitely gonna it's gonna be a heck of a game, but I definitely think I definitely like our chances against Texas.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like like in soccer, if I said, Nevada, you can design your soccer pod and you're going to be, the United States, and you can play Andorra, Liechtenstein, San Marino. I mean, you play the bottom 5 teams in the world, or you could play Spain, Portugal, France. Like, if all you got to do is win and advance, because like we were talking about, you get no credit for strength of schedule. Like, let's just be real. There's no credit for that. I mean, it's just win, baby. That's why Indiana, which was fool's gold all year, rose to top 5 by the time they played us, because they ran through, they were the best player, they were the 18-year-old adult playing in the 5th grade basketball league, essentially. If you say, hey, Kirk, you can, average as many points as you want. What grade do you want to play in the NBA, or do you want to play against, 5-year-olds? And I'm going to pay you by the point. I'm gonna say, take me out to the elementary school. Let me dunk on a bunch of little kids, as opposed to having Shaquille O'Neal dunk on me and LeBron James, that type of thing. So I don't know, but I'm excited for the schedule, but holy cow, there will be some geeking going on. All right, Nevada, let's wrap this thing up so that we can go off into the night and wish that we weren't playing Texas week 1. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, just huge recruiting weekend coming up. We're going to be on Justice back watch to see if is he coming? Is he not coming? That's going to be a big one. Then he committed to Georgia a few days ago, talking about coming up to Ohio State for a visit. All eyes on him. We'll see if he makes it, and then we'll probably have news on that tomorrow. So stay tuned.
Yeah, the safety recruiting has been incredible. So he would be Minka's little brother would be an incredible find to get to Columbus. All right. With that being said, as always, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys being a part of our show each and every night. Continue to pay it forward. Thank you guys for the super chats, and thank you for all that you guys do. Please click subscribe on our YouTube channel. Again, we've been growing this thing organically. Traditional word of mouth, grassroots, and it's all because of you guys. So thank you. As always, if you want to help us out in a big way, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. We've been growing that. Leave us a 5-star review. I'll put the link in the bio for you guys to do that. And I just appreciate all of you guys that help build this show. Again, it's absolutely incredible what it's become. 5 years strong. What a ride it's been. So as always, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow night, 7:10. You guys have a great night. Go Bucks.